Asetek released its own range of direct drive racing wheels a few years ago, with the Prima, Forte and Invicta all being direct drive but offering different levels of performance at different price ranges. Each of these wheels works perfectly in F1 24 on PC only, and over the past couple of years with an Asetek Forte on my sim rig, it has quickly become one of my favourite racing wheels. In this video I'm going to run through the Asetek F1 24 settings that I'm using. Optimizing our Asetek wheel settings for F1 24 is a two-stage process. You can change the force feedback settings directly in the game, and these will affect different areas such as track detail to overall force feedback strength, and you can also adjust various settings in Asetek's own software, RaceHub. This software is a must if you're running an Asetek wheel. It lets you update the firmware, change different settings, adjust the RGB lighting, so go ahead and download it if you haven't got it already. And I'm going to start with those RaceHub settings. Running through these, I've set the steering lock to 390 degrees. Normally it should be around 360, but in this year's game 400 degrees is the default due to the updated handling model. I've lowered this ever so slightly to 390 just to give a little bit more responsiveness. The bump stop hardness is kind of a personal preference, but this will affect how the steering wheel feels once you reach the maximum steering lock. I like a soft bump stop hardness with a range of about 5 degrees. The frequency limit is a hard limitation of the force feedback frequency, and Asetek themselves recommend setting this to 3300 Hz, so that's exactly what we've done. The damping will add some weight to the steering wheel while also smoothing out some of the force feedback detail. Setting this to anywhere between 15 and 10% will give enough sensation of weight without them making the steering wheel feel too heavy. The friction is kind of similar to damping, although it's focused more on simulating actual friction between the tyres and the track surface. For the Prima, I'd recommend the smallest amount. However, with the Forte and Invicta, you don't really need this, so either keep it at 5% or drop it right down to 0. The inertia setting adds a little bit of extra weight to the wheel to simulate a real-world steering rack. For the Prima wheel, I'd opt for a setting of 1, while the Forte and Invicta wheels once again don't need this setting enabled to turn it off. The cornering force assist helps by lowering the overall force strength during sustained loads through longer corners. This can lower fatigue a little bit as you won't need as much strength to hold the steering wheel during a corner. Going with a setting of 1 is more than enough for F1 24. Now the overall force setting adjusts the maximum force of your wheel. You can adjust this to your own preference. Increasing it will make the force feedback stronger, while lowering it will lower the max strength. For the Prima, the maximum torque is capped at 12 Nm, so go with that. For the Forte and Invicta, you can increase it more, but I found between 12 and 15 works really well. The torque behaviour setting adjusts the smoothness of your force feedback, and I would recommend leaving this at 1, which is also recommended by Asetek. Now the torque acceleration limit refers to the slew rate and adjusts the speed of the force feedback changes. This should be set to the maximum that your wheel allows. And the anti-oscillation setting is the final setting we'll tweak in RaceHub. This reduces any unwanted shaking and oscillation that can occur on some straights or different parts of the track. I'd go with a setting between 5 and 8% depending on which wheel you're using. With RaceHub configured, let's jump into the F1 24 settings and start with the calibration. In here you don't really need to change too much, you could easily get away with leaving everything at 0. I've changed my throttle and brake settings, but they are to do with the SimuCube throttle and pedal that I'm running and nothing to do with the Asetek base. Then jump over to the vibration and force feedback effects. In here you can adjust a few things. For me, I'm running the Forte wheel and I've set the vibration and force feedback strength to 70. I've gone with the on-track and rumble strip effects of 20 and 30. If you're running a Prima, you may want to boost some of these settings a little bit, and if you're on an Invicta wheel, you may want to lower them a touch. I've then set the off-track effects pretty low at 15, left the pit stop effects alone at 50. The wheel damper, set it to 0 no matter which Asetek wheel you're running. This is dictated by the RaceHub software, so we don't need to implement any of that in F1 24. And then I've matched the steering rotation, going with 390 degrees for a tiny bit more responsiveness and sensitivity. And that'll round out my F1 24 Asetek wheel settings. The Forte wheel has been my go-to racing wheel for the last couple of years, and it's the one that's on my rig more often than not. If you are in the market for an Asetek wheel, you can get a 5% discount using the code SIMRACINGSETUP, which I'll leave in the description below. And please let me know in the comments below if you like these settings, or if you're using a different set of settings or a different racing wheel altogether. But for now guys, enjoy these and I will see you on track.